Reports coming in that Israel is behind a number of airstrikes in Syria, killing 7 people. We'll go live to our correspondent. Qatar is threatening to stop financial aid to the impoverished Gaza Strip as the pushback continues over Israel's West Bank annexation plan. And a huge jump in coronavirus cases in Israel, with additional areas being designated as red zones as police continue to hand out hefty fines. Hello, I'm Sarah Coates. Thanks for joining me. Well, senior US officials are expected to meet today to discuss whether to approve Israel's annexation plan in the West Bank and Jordan Valley ahead of the July 1st target date set by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So, what are the options? Here's the latest.
Decision time. The White House is set to decide greenlight Israeli annexation plans or not. David Friedman, U.S. Ambassador to Israel, a key player in orchestrating this far-reaching policy move, will be arriving in Washington to meet with senior administration officials such as Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Special Advisor Jared Kushner. President Donald Trump himself may also join in the discussions. The main question now, says an administration official, is whether annexation will help to promote peace with the Palestinians. According to the source, the options expected to be considered are a gradual, step-by-step process in which Israel will first declare sovereignty over some settlements near Jerusalem instead of 30% of the West Bank as Netanyahu envisioned in the original plan. The official said the administration has not closed the door to wider annexation, but fears that if Israel moves too quickly, it could ultimately end any chance of getting the Palestinians to the negotiating table to discuss Trump's greater peace plan. In addition, Washington also fears opposition to annexation in Jordan and the Gulf states. The latter countries in recent years have secretly expanded their cooperation with Israel. Annexation might undermine the progress that has been made so far. And if that's not enough, the source added that Washington wants the entire Israeli government, which is still divided over the issue, to come to a conclusion before promoting any measures. Meanwhile, the Jewish Telegraphic Agency reports U.S. representatives with the Republican Party sent a letter to Prime Minister Netanyahu supporting Israel's right to set its own borders. The signatories, totaling 116 out of 198 GOP House members, also reaffirmed the, quote, unshakable alliance between the United States and Israel. But at the moment, what appears to be far from unshakable is the grand annexation plan and its July 1st deadline.
And for more on this story, let's go now live to Jerusalem, where our correspondent Alec Pollard is standing by. Alec, hello again. We know that this meeting was supposed to take place yesterday in the United States, happening now today. A number of high-ranking officials there. What can we expect to come out of it?
Well, Israeli officials will be following this meeting very closely to see what exactly is the official U.S. opinion regarding this, because Israel really needs that U.S. support if it wants to proceed with any type of move, because it doesn't have support of anyone else from the international community, at least not governments. There may be specific individuals, many Christians, who would support the move, but no governments. We're seeing the head of the UN now, Guterres, coming out and saying that Israel annexing parts of the West Bank, that would be a violation of international law. We've seen over 1,000 lawmakers from across the EU coming out now with a letter saying that they oppose the move. So Israel really needs that U.S. backing to see what type of annexation it can proceed with. And there are several camps in the U.S. administration. We have Jared Kushner, one of the major architects of the Trump peace plan, who stipulates it needs to happen with cooperation with the Palestinians, through negotiations with the Palestinians, which are currently not ongoing. So Kushner would like to scale back any type of move. The ambassador to Israel, the U.S. ambassador, who usually sits here at the embassy in Jerusalem, is currently in the U.S. He will push forward for Israel to say, yes, Israel can annex under the Trump peace initiative, even 30% of the West Bank. So those are two different opinions that we have over there. And in the end, the decision could really come down to President Trump himself. What opinion does he have? And we know that Trump, he usually does not get into the sort of nitty-gritty of details. He works a lot on his instinct and what his instinct will be on this issue can be the deciding factor whether Israel does push forward with annexation and what type of annexation it pushes forward with.
And Alec, you did mention this letter by the EU and Guterres there with a lot of widespread condemnation over these annexation plans. Tell me, can this condemnation go any way whatsoever in swaying the United States and also Israel from backing down from these plans?
Well, it certainly does have some sort of effect, but Israelis know that they don't have the Europeans on board with this, and we've seen President Trump specifically really buck the EU trend on many issues. For instance, NATO funding. We've seen it in his ties with France and with Germany. So I think it will have some sort of impact, but not enough to really sway the United States and in turn sway Israel, right? Because Israel is dependent here on U.S. support. Israel is dependent on its support inside itself, right? The cooperation between blue and white and Likud. The U.S. are saying that there needs to be a move by Israel that's supported also by Benny Gantz and Gabi Ashkenazi from the Blue and White Party. So those are really the more defining factors that will decide what happens in the end, more than EU. The EU does have some impact, but it is more dependent on Washington and Jerusalem.
All right, Alec Pollard there in Jerusalem. Thank you for the update. We'll come back to you a little later. And joining me here in studio is our Middle East correspondent, Adi Koblowitz. Adi, hello again. I want to talk about these annexation plans a little further, really causing waves in other Arab areas or Palestinian territories, with Qatar now saying that it will withhold this vital aid which it funnels to Gaza in response if Israel does in fact go ahead.
Yes, Sarah, this seems like another measure of pressure towards Israel in order to persuade the Israeli government to avoid annexation. We know that Qatar has been funneling this money to the Gaza Strip for over 2 years now, and every time that there's a delay with the money transfer, there's unrest on the Gaza border. Just 2 weeks ago, we've seen that there was a delay in this aid money from coming into the Gaza Strip, and all of a sudden, incendiary balloons were launched from the Gaza Strip towards Israel, and we heard Hamas threatening that they will take more aggressive means towards Israel if the money isn't funneled into the Gaza Strip. It's important to say at that point when Hamas was threatening Israel, Israel approved this funneling of money, but this doesn't matter. Hamas only has leverage on Israel, and it can only pressure Israel. And Qatar is understanding that. Qatar understands that if the money doesn't enter the Gaza Strip, the pressure will be towards Israel, and Hamas will use aggressive means towards Israel. And this is a way of Qatar to really leverage Israel and try to pressure it into avoiding an annexation of the West Bank. What's interesting about this is that we did hear Hamas saying several times that using armed resistance is the way to oppose annexation. They've criticized the Palestinian Authority very harshly for not going into armed struggle with Israel because of the annexation. But the only thing that really causes Hamas to take these aggressive means and actually use arms against Israel and firearms against Israel is when the aid from Qatar is not entering the Gaza Strip and not just the annexation on itself.
And Adi, quite briefly, we've got about a minute left. We've heard a lot of angry voices from the Palestinian side and also the international community coming out against this annexation. But what about on the Palestinian street? I understand a poll has been conducted.
That's right. A new poll just published yesterday about Palestinian public opinion. The majority of Palestinians are convinced that Israel is going to follow through with annexation. Obviously, the big majority opposes this. 65% of Palestinians are backing up the Palestinian Authority for suspending the agreements with Israel. However, there is a big majority of Palestinians that are afraid of the implications of suspending these agreements. This could cause a shortage of water supplies and electricity supply that are coming from Israel to the West Bank, maybe even restrictions on travelers to Israel and to Jordan. This really worries a lot of the Palestinians, despite the fact that they are backing up the Palestinian Authority in suspending these agreements.
All right, Adi Koblowitz, thank you. We'll come back to you a little later as well. And we're going out for a short break, but when we get back, an extremely worrying spike in coronavirus cases right here in Israel as authorities lock down a number of neighbourhoods. We'll have all of that and plenty more. Stay with us.